Hi, it's Ashley with Garden Grace Florals. We are in the actual studio today. You can tell because it's a little bit organized and a little bit chaotic, per usual. I hope that you find comfort in the fact that all studios are pretty much alike. So we are creatives. Our studios can be a little hectic and messy, especially around this time of year. So today's video, we're going to be talking about greenery and particularly holiday installations, including the quantity of different types of stems that I like to use for installations like the one you saw at the intro of this video, as well as accent pieces, things you can forage, ideas to bring your own creative take into whatever you are making as a floral artist, whether it's as a hobby, for friends and family, or for your business. So let's dive right in. Okay, so my biggest thing that I wanted to share today with you all is essentially how much I like to use, how many greens, how many stems I like to use for installations that are a little bit larger, because I think what often happens is folks get a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of product that you ideally are going to be using for larger installations. If you have been following along on this channel and our journey, we do have a lot of tutorials about like floral recipes, which are essentially the idea that just like a baking recipe or a cooking recipe, you have a certain number of different type of stems and flowers you would want to use to create a recipe for a particular design, right? So in the case of, for example, that large staircase design that you saw at the beginning of the video, I had upwards of 4 buckets full of different varieties of greenery. Some of my favorite types of greenery for this purpose, for these types of installations, are everything from magnolia leaves and branches, which are a personal favorite and are abundant here and local, and so I love that. Juniper trees, and sometimes when they have those really pretty blueberries, I love that as well, if I can find that. Other greens that look great and are super textural, which for me is a big thing, include like Douglas fir. You can also incorporate pine cones, not just the actual pine cone, but things like stems with the pine cone still on them. I often also try to find, especially in the fall, things that have maybe dried on the branch when I'm foraging, for example. And so really just kind of creating a unique, a little bit of a different color aspect too in the design. I do have a few other videos on foraging and kind of things to consider when foraging, so definitely check those out as well. But so all that to say, textural, different unique stems, all good. I think the more that you can find those stems either at a local supplier or get them maybe from your own property, the better. I just think that's a really resourceful, sustainable way to create designs. Now, another piece of advice that I always like to share with folks is, so let's say you need 4 buckets full of stems, and depending on the size of the stem, that can be, you know, each bucket can be the equivalent of, let's say, like 10 huge branches worth of product, or it can be 50 smaller branches worth of product. It really is going to be a situation where, again, you're creating the recipe for what you're trying to design for. If you've never designed this particular idea or project before, which is most of us, what I like to do is kind of sketch it out and think visually about the fact that, for example, in those first few videos and photos I showed of the installation that we did on the staircase, I actually knew that I wanted to have a focal moment at the stairs. And so what that means for me is I was able to find a few pristine, huge branches of magnolia. And I was also able to find a few pods, magnolia pods still on the branch, which I absolutely loved. And if you'll notice, is a really focal element in that. So I had 2 or 3 huge branches. Each of them were probably, I would say 3 feet, maybe let's say in length, that really started the design. And then from there, I anticipate, let's say I'll need, 8 to 10 feet additionally length. And so I think about, okay, well, how many more additional 2 to 3 foot branches would I need to cover that space? I always say, whether you're ordering or foraging, definitely make sure that you get 10 to 20% more stems or branches or flowers than what you think you will need. Even if you're ordering from, and especially if you're ordering from a wholesaler, expect, especially if there's shipping involved or you're having to transport it from some other location, that there will be loss or damage of the flowers. They are perishable items, right? So just food for thought. Kind of the final thing I wanted to share in this video is how to think creatively about additions to your florals or greenery. In the case of this installation, it's a lot of fairy lights, candles, taper candles, pillar candles, glass shades for each of those things. So it's kind of an elegant way to add that romantic candlelight into the design, which was exactly what I was going for. This was kind of a holiday inspired wedding installation. And so those things, those romantic touches are really important. The same can be said for even just a cozy or warm holiday installation at your own home or for guests. I think that candles can go a really long way. In addition to candles, I also used pine cones. I used really beautiful just pieces of wood, like small logs that I also thought just were an incredible detail. And the moral of this story ultimately that I want you to hear is that you can create beauty with things that are foraged, with things that you have around your house, whether it's candles, greenery, and they can make a really beautiful statement. You can certainly also purchase those things. Again, I would recommend local or from your wholesaler. So support small businesses, but these are just a few holiday decor ideas that I have used over the years that I think are really easy to incorporate whatever your design might be. If you are curious about what design style you might have as you're growing as a floral designer, the best tip I can share with you is to start maybe pinning things on Pinterest or finding things that you like online, photos that really speak to you of other people's work, and maybe start collecting those things. Make a little mood board or a vision board of those things so that you can start to get a sense of what style do you really like? Is it more modern? Is it traditional? Do you really love certain colors? Over the years, I've really learned that I love incorporating pink tones in a lot of my designs. I have done that through almost every season. And so that's definitely more my style, and I love that. And so I try to incorporate even like whimsical details into my designs because that for me is really fun. So just food for thought. I definitely encourage foraging as safely as possible. I encourage budget-friendly, as you guys know, if you've been following along on this channel, budget-friendly ideas. And I think for the holidays, you can do all of those things. So happy designing, and I look forward to seeing you on our next video.